Yeah, showing life.
Cool, mate. Um, I guess to start with, yeah, tell us a bit about yourself, company you work for, or director of, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So I'm Dan Brice, outdoor education specialist. Currently working for a group of companies called the Channel Group. So Channel Training, Channel Adventure, and Channel Events, based over in Minehead. I suppose a bit about me. I've been working in the outdoor industry since 2000, but full time since 2004. I've worked in various settings in the outdoor education sector. So started off in activity centres with your sort of your classic school groups coming on residentials and day visits. But then since then, I've worked in the private sector in pupil referral units, had my own small
Yeah.
business. Yeah, worked at Bridgewater College lecturing, so done that that sort of post 16 lecturing on outdoor education programs. So yeah, and then also worked for Somerset Activity and Sports Partnership and the Sedgemoor Mendip School Sports Partnership. So that's kind of, as you can see, and then now working for Channel. So a real diverse range of roles within the sector. So
Yeah, cool. Mate, tell us a little bit about each of the strands of the business then. So I know you've got, yeah, channel events, sorry, yeah, go on.
yeah, so it all started, Jim and Darren set it up 8 years ago. It all started with Channel Training. Jim and Darren both worked in West Somerset College. Darren was a PE teacher, Jim was a physics teacher, both in charge of the outdoor education there.
Yeah.
And both sort of were not necessarily looking to get out of teaching, but I think they saw a gap in the market to deliver apprenticeships to outdoor activity want to be outdoor activity providers.
Yeah.
Doing it in a way rather than a college setting and going on block release or day release, actually doing it very much in the centre. So going to the centre, seeing the students there, making it very personal. And that's developed really well now. One of, if not the sort of outdoor provider of apprenticeships in the country.
Oh, wow.
In that aspect of just focusing on what we do well. And from that, really, doing all the training work and starting to work with schools, delivering BTEC practical sessions where the teachers maybe couldn't deliver it, didn't have the qualifications to deliver it. It sort of rolled very quickly into, can you do our Duke of Edinburgh and can you do our induction days? So that kind of spawned Channel Adventure as a separate company just to deal with the adventurous activity delivery part.
Okay. Yeah.
And obviously from that, then schools, stag do's, hen do's, hire, taster sessions, all anything to do with that sort of commercial sort of side of the outdoor sector came through Channel Adventure. And then training kept doing its apprenticeships, first aid training, instructor courses, etc. And then when I went to join them in 2015, it was 2015, I went across to go and be operations manager for Channel Adventure and took with me a mountain biking event that I'd started 8 years ago. And very quickly we snowballed into having an events company as well, which now delivers 15 events of mountain biking, trail running, long distance walking.
Wow.
So across the three businesses, we kind of hit quite a lot of the sector actually.
Yeah, from stag do's and hen do's to primary school, like massive broad range. Yeah.
Sending someone out on a triathlon.
Yeah, amazing. So Dan and I used to, I don't think we actually worked together at Somerset Activity Sports Partnership, but we were there at the same time. And I know we worked together briefly at King Alfred Secondary School. I don't know if you remember that. We were doing like archery with I think it was like year 9 or year 10, which was interesting. So yeah, back in the SAS days, I mean, it was completely alien to me and completely new to me at the time. Sort of the outdoor ed type sessions that we would deliver in primary schools. Could you give us a bit of an overview as to, I don't know, the type of work that we used to do? Maybe it was like a 3 or 6 week block of stuff we would go into primary schools and do.
Yeah, so we had it was the different things we did with primary schools actually. So Dave Jackson headed up the outdoor education there, and I worked alongside Dave to sort of promote and develop outdoor education in schools, mainly primary schools because of the nature of where SAS was at that time. 2 things we did. We either went in and delivered, or 3 things really, went and delivered outdoor education sessions to schools based on a 6-week block, because that half term seemed to fit quite nicely into the PE curriculum. So where they're maybe doing multi-skills one half term and something else, another dance, another one, gym, another one, outdoor ed would then come in more often in the summer term, but obviously we'd have to rotate them around. What we then used to do with those plans, this was more in sort of the tone sports partnership areas, we would go into schools and support teachers to deliver that program. So we'd go in and deliver week 1, with the teachers shadowing us.
Yeah.
We'd then go away for a couple of weeks, leave the teachers, delivers week 2 and 3. We'd go then back in week 4 and work with them and look at what they've done in the previous 2 weeks, give them some opportunities to ask questions and just sort of bounce off one another, really. And we supplied a load of equipment that was funded through Tone Schools into each of the schools to be able to deliver that program of work, which mainly was around problem solving, some basic orienteering, shelter building. So all the stuff that you could deliver on a school site without needing specialist equipment and specialist qualifications, really.
Yeah.
There was that side, and then there was the sort of the club side and the more extracurricular stuff where we would go into schools and do things like, say, like archery and power kiting and and then the school holiday stuff as well. So quite a lot, really, from delivering specific activities with specific qualifications we had to supporting teachers to deliver outdoor education in the school setting themselves.
Yeah, like from my experience, from when I first joined SASP and was expected to deliver outdoor ed, it was a bit daunting for me, and I'm sure that there are quite a number of teachers that will listen to this and think, yeah, do you know what, I love the idea of it, but it's a bit different, it's a bit out there to do shelter building and things like that. Would you say that it needs to be complicated? There needs to be that kind of fear of delivering it?
Personally, I wouldn't say so. We're not asking teachers to deliver a kayaking session on a lake or a climbing session.
Yeah.
But I can see where people get a bit nervous about delivering it. I think for me, the biggest sort of, how do I put it? Maybe it's the being outside. It's good to get outside, get your coat on, no matter what the weather's like. We're going outside anyway. Also, in those outdoor education sessions, and it's coming across a bit the way coaching's changing in the last few years, that let people explore, ask leading questions, and then do what they're doing rather than giving direct instruction. And I think that's where a lot of teachers struggled in the early days. We'd go in and say, they're doing a problem solving task, and it'd be, I've suggested they have a go at this, I've suggested they have a go at that. And then it's like, where's the problem solving then? If those questions are too leading, you're giving them the answer, you're not allowing them to explore and review and work through that plan, do and review cycle. And I think the other thing is things like shelter building. It's having a risk assessment with, I've got some lengths of canes or some lengths of timber, some tarpaulin, some rope. Think about the risk assessment you would write, some sort of basic operating procedure, thinking about how you want the students to manage the equipment, and then bringing that cross-curricular element in. We can, in terms of how you build a shelter, thinking about what are strong shapes. And design technology and thinking about structures and that sort of thing, I suppose. So I don't think it should be as daunting as it comes across, but then maybe I'm speaking out of turn a little bit, I don't know, but I think some teachers probably find PE in general quite daunting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's changed quite considerably, again, going back to 2007, 6, 7 when I joined. And like I said, we would do like a 6-week block of outdoor education, whereas now it's more of a, they'd go on a residential potentially to get their outdoor ed in. It wouldn't be a block of work necessarily. So I think it's lost a little bit. And I think it, like you said, doesn't necessarily need to be daunting in terms of shelter building.
I think it's always been that. I think it's always been that way. I think schools have always done that tick box exercise of, job done. Whereas I'd like to see it almost the other way, that the school staff could be pushing the problem solving, the orienteering, the shelter. They'd then be pushing the outdoor centres to go, hey, we've done this, our kids are up on this, what are you going to provide for us? We're paying to go on residential, how are you going to step it up and either expand on what we've done or give our students that next level of experience? That's kind of what we're trying to do at SASP, delivering it in the schools, to say, this can be done here. This doesn't have to be fillers in a residential week. And the problem solving stuff as well. I think, like you said about lengths of wood and blocks, I remember doing the cross the river stuff quite regularly, and working as a team and that type of thing, and doing that for a week, and then you could do orienteering for a week. It doesn't need to be like a 6-week block like you just said. It could be easily sort of woven into a week or 2 or 3 weeks of the curriculum. I remember actually in secondary school I did an orienteering. It was like a cross-curricular, like geography type session, where we had basically countries
mapped out on this massive school field, and they had to go from one country, and it would tell you which other country to go to, and they'd have a map, and they would try and navigate themselves to it. So yeah, you can be creative with it and get it into the curriculum, I think, as you say.
Yeah, definitely. And that's another thing that we tried to push a little bit those years ago during the SASP and Central Amended days, is outdoor education is sort of considered as part of the PE curriculum, and it's often tried to be shoehorned into the PE slots within the school timetable. And PE is a massive subject, as you know. It's but exactly like you just said, you go out and do some orienteering, and you've got some grid lines on your map of the school, then that, taking a grid reference is coordinates, which is maths, and making maps is part of geography, and the teamwork and all the social interaction is part of PSHE. And so it's like you say, being a bit creative and going, actually, I want to cover this in my PSHE lesson or this in my maths lesson. How can I do it outside? Let's get the kids out of the classroom, into the playground, onto the field, and go and do something active, physical, get some fresh air, but actually achieve those same goals that we want to achieve in the classroom, but in a practical way.
And that leads on to the next question, actually, in terms of that outdoor learning. And we've talked about it in terms of outdoor ed specifically, but now we talk about maths and talk about geography in my secondary school lesson that I taught. What benefits are there for doing those things rather than maths in the classroom, English in the classroom, to take them out, not necessarily every week, but what benefits would you see in doing that?
For me, I'm a big fan of sort of that experiential learning and practical learning. I suppose I'm a doer myself, so I see the benefits that way, that being outside, doing something practical, physical, and seeing how that works, I learn a lot better that way than someone trying to teach me sat at a table reading a textbook. But then I've also got to appreciate that not all learners are the same as that, and everyone learns in a way. So, the visual, audio, kinesthetic learning styles, I'm also a firm believer that none of us are one of those. We're all elements of everything. We might have a preference, but we all need to learn to adapt to learn in different ways. So I suppose by mixing it up in your week is going to benefit your students, and those that maybe don't like the physical side so much and the kinesthetic side will hopefully get better at it, and those that are the more kinesthetic learners will still get that visual audio input from the classroom. So, but for me, it's that time outside, I suppose, is sort of 2 hours a week now, something like that. Is sort of
2 hours a week.
That's not a lot of time really to be outside, and our lives are spent indoors now. For me, being outside, getting some fresh air, being physically active, doing whatever we're doing is so beneficial for our mental health as well as our physical health. So I think I'm just afraid sometimes we might lose that by spending too much time in the classroom. Technology is brilliant, but I'm afraid that we might lose our connection with nature and all that sort of stuff by being sucked in by the technological world as well. So we need to make sure that we still instill that in our young people, really.
There's 2 points actually that I want to touch on. The first one being obviously what everybody's going through at the moment, and not everybody, but a lot of people trying to make sure they get out once a day for their walk. So hopefully, I mean, for me, from our point of view, and I'm sure yours, that PE and physical activity and being outdoors, the importance of that is realised more than ever. But equally, like you mentioned, the 2 hours of PE, if we broke that down into the average primary school, when you include changing time into and out of PE, you're talking maybe half an hour for the younger ones of a PE lesson when they're actually physically active. And it's almost moving away from that traditional PE of, right, it's 2 hours a week. And the government have obviously said that it's 30 minutes during the school day, which is required for every child, which is a real challenge. But then I think that then comes to your point that if we start to do more things outside and in an active way, that counts, and children then start to appreciate being outdoors. And like I said, now more than ever, we need that when schools return.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And that's where we briefly chatted about it before we went live, but that's where lots of schools and their provisions such as Forest School comes in. There's so much that's physically being outside. Lots of schools are lucky enough to have a little area they use for their Forest School, or they might use it off-site. But there's there's a massive amount of cross-curricular learning there, from the science curriculum into maths. Where I'm coming from on that. So definitely important for me, for people to be outside and active. I hope, like I say, during this current lockdown situation, I hope that people are getting out and active. We're seeing a lot more people going out for walks, going out for a run, going out for a cycle, more than we've ever seen before. I hope those people stay physically active as families as well. But interestingly, since the lockdown, even myself and my own family, we've probably done a little bit more. We've got a little fire pit in the garden. We've had campfires, toasting marshmallows and making bread and, stuff like that. We've built shelters in the garden and done it as a family. And it's that's really helped us as well, because it's bringing us as a family together. And so hopefully this lockdown when the kids go back to school, but hopefully families do more together post this as well and understand the importance of being outside and being physically active. So.
Oh, I really hope so. And take it for granted as well. And my two are very active, and them being locked up in the house, we just have to get out every day. Otherwise, bedtime just becomes a massive challenge. And I know it's a massive mindset to change with parents that aren't active and live more sedentary lifestyles. And equally, not just their lifestyles in terms of activity levels, but more around what they consume as well at dinner time and even at breakfast and things like that. And I think now more than ever, parents will realise how a fully charged child is hard to get to sleep, right? Whereas if they've been to school for the whole day, they've had their hour PE, they've been tearing out at lunchtime, come 7:30, they'll just crash. So I know we're going off piste a little bit here, but being outside, being active, and also just being in the fresh air as well, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, that's a big one for me. Away from primary stuff, actually, we notice it a lot on our event side, just sort of touching on this, that we get a lot of people now coming to volunteer and marshal and things like that. Not because they're mountain bikers or trail runners, they want to put something back, but people are realizing, actually, I can go and stand at that checkpoint in a beautiful place for the day, get some fresh air, have a real positive social interaction with all the entrants, and go home like it doesn't feel like work, but they've actively walked into a place. We even encourage it when they bring their kids with them. We have families doing that. So so like I said, hopefully this will give us an opportunity for families to get more active, which will benefit then the children going back to school, because they'll understand the PE, and the learning outside the classroom as well.
Yeah, I know we've covered a few benefits already. We talked about sleep being one of them, which hadn't actually crossed my mind. It's not really in my notes, but if you had to list some benefits of outdoor ed for a school as a combined entity, however you want to look at it, what would you say the main benefits are?
For me, for the children working together, it's the working together, the social interaction. It's the problem solving elements that go with a lot of the outdoor education. We'll go through life having to solve problems. We can't ask everybody the answer to a question. We need to work stuff out.
Absolutely.
A bit, like to say, the resilience that comes with that is a benefit as well. Having to try again, and if it doesn't work, how can we adjust it? Try it again. The plan, do the review process that comes with that too. Being able to look at something, work it out. If it doesn't work, why didn't it work? What can I do differently? All of that is a big benefit to me. And the bit of that connection with nature as well. And the connection with nature doesn't have to be out in the woods for the day. That's brilliant if they want to go out there. But just being outside in your own garden, listening to the bird song or watching the birds or looking at what else is around you.
Definitely.
Do you know what I mean? There's all that stuff. Just being outside is really good for us. And the majority of people now live very, like say, sedentary indoor lives. Lots of jobs inside, lots of jobs in front of a screen. And we've got to be very careful not to lose that connection with the outside, and if we deliver that in schools, and then the kids are going home saying, "Mum, Dad, let's go outside. Let's come here, lay on the floor and look at us. Let's look at the stars." Or do you know what I mean? And then we can get those young people going home and pestering their parents to get out and get active as well.
Sorry, go on. I want to go into one of those in a bit more detail. The problem solving that you talked about. So Dan delivered a day as part of our Inspired Lives project at Willavington School. So we're piloting Inspired Lives at Willavington School just outside of Bridgewater. So Dan and Channel Adventure came in and did a whole day around problem solving. We targeted specific classes for that. So I guess to start with, you just give us an overview of what that day looked like in terms of your delivery and what the children were doing, and then we'll talk about the benefits of what you were trying to get out of them during that day.
Yeah, okay. So throughout the day, we worked with different key stages, and we pitched, it was an hour and a half session. So we pitched each of the hour and a half sessions to the specific key stage. All 3 key stages had to go an introduction to an orienteering activity, which this one particular one was netball court orienteering, which can actually be found in the TOPS outdoor cards. Still in,
I'm sure they will. Yeah.
And most schools have a netball court on the playground somewhere. You know, the brilliant thing about this is it teaches an introduction to maps, setting a map. So basically looking at the map and working out how it looks on the ground, and then following a set course of 6 controls out of the 14 that are marked on the course. And actually where this is a really good cross-curricular activity is they have to add up the numbers. There's cones basically as controls. On the bottom of each cone there's a number. And they go around the course adding the numbers up, and they come back to you, and if they've got the right answer they move on to the next course basically. So they're doing a bit of mental maths as they're going as well, so that's really nice because it's teaching a bit of geography in terms of maps. It's got some maths in there with your mental arithmetic, and it's being out physically active. That was great. And then the other half of the session was spent problem solving, which is the main point that you've brought up, and that was just pitching some activities to let them have a go at. Because of the length of time we had and the size of the classes being, like most schools, sort of 34 a time. What it means is there wasn't time for every group to complete every activity. We move them on. And the point we were trying to get across is the problem solving doesn't always have to be about the completion. It's about what you learn in the process. Yeah, completing the activity is brilliant, and that's really, really good for your, you know, motivation and everything else. But actually what you get a lot more out of not completing something and having to have another go and getting into that plan. And brilliance of going, actually, we didn't quite get there. We weren't quite quick enough this time, but if we did it again, we would do this. Or, we planned for too long. We were bickering about this and didn't get started. That's what we were trying to get across. And the beauty of a lot of these problem-solving tasks, all the ones we deliver, you know, there's nothing new there. Lots of outdoor providers use the same task, you know, using tyres to cross a swamp and planks and crates to cross things, or blindfold, get yourself in height order with your blindfolds on, so you can't see, but you have to talk to each other and listen, all that kind of stuff. But it was about pitching it at the right level. So you're looking at your key stage 1 students, maybe flipping out some and changing the tyres for some hoops. So the principle of the task is the same, you're just changing the equipment. So you're looking at that step process that we use a lot, the space-time equipment for people, you know. So that was the aim of that day, looking at problem solving, social interaction with each other, team development. Communication's a big part of that. And I tend to, it's a bit of a cheesy phrase, but I tend to say to a lot of our students, you know, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a very good reason. As much listening as we do talking, it's really important to listen. If you don't listen, you know where I'm going with that. And that cooperation as well, that it might not be your idea that's being used, but it might be your idea on the next task. But everyone can take it. Sometimes we're a leader, sometimes we have to be part of the team and follow someone else's lead, and that's a really good thing. And it might not be the person with the loudest voice that necessarily has got the best idea, you know, and how do they challenge each other to come up with who's going to run that task. So lots of points in that, but they're the kind of what we were trying to get out of it. And that's where an hour and a half isn't long enough, you know.
You can spend a whole day with the same kids, right?
Or 10, 12, or a session you know, it just
one of the real interesting things listening to you talk there is, yes, we theme that sort of second part of the hour and a half around problem solving, but here it's just sort of taking a step back and listening to you there. I'm thinking, you know, Dan's talking about resilience there. He's talking about teamwork. He's talking about sharing, talking about maybe one being a leader and different ideas. So Inspired Lives, as you know, we work with that school on resilience being one, problem solving, creativity, confidence. Basically how I would want my girls to grow up, having those values, but there's such crossover between them all. And one of the biggest things that came across, well, obviously we've worked with the school since, and one of the feedbacks they give us on every day, and it's lovely when you've got a provider, an external provider such as yourself, who doesn't know the children, has no preconceived ideas about who can work with who. And in the session that you led, I think there were 2 children that don't normally work together for reasons that they can't or don't usually. But when you did the guttable game, they were part of a team of, I don't know, was it 4 to 6? And they just got on with it and they achieved the problem. and they worked really well together for about 15 to 20 minutes. And it was brilliant. And I love that. I love that. I just want, sorry to go on. It's one of the things we always say to our coaches when they go into a new school. If a teacher says to them, "Oh, just be mindful of," just don't take that on board, because they could be a completely different child in outdoor ed, in PE, in dance, in gymnastics. And it's our job, or we say to our guys that work for us, to make PE or whatever they're delivering their favourite subject of the week. And then behaviour is minimal.
Yeah, no, definitely, I'd agree with that. I've always been an advocate of exactly what you've just said. The only thing I would say is, if there's any students that maybe have a particular behaviour trigger that they might have, then that's quite nice to know. But you generally get like, oh, you just want to watch out for this. You just want to, and they're normally such things you can actually just. I like to make my own mind up and like exactly.
Yeah.
Deliver the session, go in, see how they react, because quite often new faces or in a different setting, take them out of their comfort zone. That's normally the key. Kids will often do certain things and act in certain ways when they're comfortable. So if they're taken out of their comfort zone, they often react very differently, and you get a very different set of results. We see a lot outside of the school setting when students come on, days with us, and we're suddenly taking them climbing or abseiling or kayaking or paddleboarding or something like that, where it's way out of their comfort zones, and you can see some completely different to what you
absolutely
try and say they're like this and this, and well, actually that might be right like that in school, but here they have not shown any of that. So
absolutely. You do, you're right, you see a completely different side to a lot of children when they're outdoors doing, even from, I don't know, let's say a gymnastics or a team-based PE lesson, you might see a completely different side to a child in that to an outdoor ed lesson, because it just works. They just enjoy the challenge, they enjoy working things out, and they enjoy maybe just being outside and doing those things. Dan, I've got a couple more things. One of the things actually I researched earlier was outdoor ed can potentially improve behaviour. I know we sort of touched on it there. What would be your take on that? My take on it, I'll go into it in a second, but how could you see outdoor ed improving behaviour?
A couple of reasons, probably. If you actually look at it for a number of years now, probably talking 20, 30, 40 years, outdoor education has been used with a lot of, pupil referral units or private groups, rehabilitation groups, as a medium to deliver that. And I wonder if a lot of that's because, if you think about, I'm going back to my SAS days, and not just teaching outdoor education, but also teaching in the PE curriculum, the multi-skills, net and ball games, and also being a cricket coach before this. Quite often in that setting, we've got 30, 35 young people to manage as one person.
Yeah.
Whereas when you look at the outdoor education setting, if you come into a school and deliver it, you've still got those 35 young people, but you tend to split them down into groups of 10 or 12 for the activities.
Yeah.
If you take them off-site and do an outdoor education day or a number of days or residential visit, those students are often then broken down into groups of 8 or 12 because of the strict ratios with a lot of outdoor activities. So that to me is a potential help for behaviour, because then you're just bringing them into a smaller group. The nature of the activities, putting them outside of their comfort zone maybe helps them to react slightly differently. Maybe listen a bit more to what's going on because they don't want to get it wrong, because they're all of the perceived risks that come with outdoor education. We know that the riskiest thing they'll do is travel on a minibus to get somewhere, but there's a lot of perceived risk around it, and that helps with behaviour sometimes as well. That they tend to be like, right, okay, I don't want to get this kind of wrong because I'm really nervous right now. And probably some outdoor activities are very sort of autocratic in the way they're delivered. Things like archery, rifle shooting. It's very much stand here, throw, stop. But then the rest of it's very much delivered on a more of an experiential learning, empowering the young people to explore and learn and work together. And potentially that's some of that where that behaviour improves. The setting maybe not quite as formal. I think long term as well. A lot of the stuff we've talked about is that immediate being in a different environment and doing different tasks, but also long term, I think the personal development that someone can go through if outdoor ed is a regular fixture in the school curriculum can be huge. Some of the stuff we've already talked about around resilience, teamwork, sharing, and those types of skills can be quite difficult for a lot of children that haven't
been able or needed to do it, they get whatever they want at home potentially, so they don't know how to share when they come into school. So yeah, I think as a longer term thing as well, it's going to be really useful for those children.
I think there's another bit of it for me. I think, like I say, it's all around that social interaction, isn't it? And there's a number of, although we've got a lot of team games, it can be delivered in a way in a coaching environment where you're doing drills in very small groups, ones and twos, doing a football skill or a cricket skill or something like that. Whereas in the outdoor setting, you're kind of working as a group of 8.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing something like kayaking or climbing or something, but a lot of it's delivered in those groups, and they're spending all that time with that small group of people working together all the time. So that helps. But I also wonder whether there's a bit of outside of the PE setting. This is a bit my own thoughts. I've not done any research. I'd like to do some research on it, but looking at how busy parents are now, most families are 2-parent working families. Do people sit around the dinner table together very much anymore? Do young people learn to take turns in conversation and share and converse and all that sort of thing? And is that, so therefore those social skills may be starting to lack in a lot of young people. Then you bring them into that competitive environment. If you can't positively socially interact, and then you're suddenly thrown into a competitive situation, you're likely to just to detract from that situation rather than thriving.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
It's just it's just something I've been thinking about for a little while, but I'm not actually doing any hard research on it, obviously, but so don't take my word for that. But it's just kind of view on, you can kind of think, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Dan, I'm going to put you on the spot here. If people want to find out a bit more about Channel Adventure, where can they find out a bit more about you and get in touch?
So best thing to do really is to go via the website. So www.channeladventure.co.uk. All the information is on the website for schools. We've got 2 centres, one in Taunton and one in Minehead. The Taunton Centre at the coach facilities, the new Centre for Outdoor Activity Community Hub, which is where we're based. That's more of the drive to get schools there. We've got access to Longman Meadow, the River Tones there with sheltered water all the time, etc.
Amazing. Yeah.
So, and it's right in the middle of Taunton as well, so easily accessible. So that's good. And then for those who want a bit more, we've got a coastal location in Minehead as well, where we can do some activities on the sea, but obviously there's a bit more independent. So head over to there. Follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We've got profiles on all of those.
Awesome. Yeah, make sure you look it up.
Yeah, and then if you're into channel training, the training side of it or the event side of it, then just generally the first hits on Google if you Google those 3 companies. So.
Right. So I'm going to put you on the spot. When schools go back, there's rumours that year 6s will be going back after half term. How amazing would it be if with those year 6s or some children, there were some kind of resources that they could do, maybe even if it was just a one-off lesson or 2 lessons that they could do. And it doesn't need to be anything massively planned, just some ideas that anybody listening to this could throw together for the final part of the summer term. How do you fancy working on that with me and just getting some bits out there to people?
Yeah, we could potentially look at something.
Massively on the spot. No, not a major piece of work. I just think more like a flashcard type thing, and maybe like the crossing the river game or something like that schools could do with the equipment that they've got. Not a formal lesson plan. I won't hold you to that.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, and there's, we definitely put something together. And there's, if you don't mind me saying as well, there are numerous resources out there as well that schools just need digging off the shelf.
Even if it was an existing resource that we can point people towards, that would be great.
I mean, one of the resources that is good, back from thinking of our days at SASP, is the team building, the booklet that Dave Jackson put together when he worked at SASP.
Okay. Yeah. That's
a great starting place. I mean, it was written 10 years ago now or something, but it's still
okay.
There's waterproof. If they've got one, there's waterproof flashcards in the back of there. Your schools outside of Somerset might have to find one, but most schools in Somerset would have had one at some point given to them.
Okay. Try and dig that out.
Home schools and Sedgmore Mendip schools definitely would have got them.
Okay.
And then there's also the TOPS resource is pretty good as well, with the netball court orienteering in it and some other ideas in there. So.
Okay, brilliant. Off the back of this, then, what I'll do, and I'll speak to Dan about this, is we'll just put a little resource of sort of 5 websites that people can visit with good resources. And if you do want to do some outdoor ed when schools return, it'll be a lovely sort of finish to school, build up those social skills that people not would have lost, but they would have not had many conversations over the past sort of 6 weeks. So yeah, that'll be great. Dan, thank you so much. It's been great to talk to you. Thank you for your time. And yeah, I'll catch up with you soon.
Yeah, pleasure. Thanks, Ben.
Cheers, Dan. Tom, thanks.